As you know, the Black Lives Matter protest all over the country. George Floyd was finally laid to rest yesterday. I can't even begin to count all the funerals he had. That's crazy. But listen, a lot of people paying their respects. And yesterday he was finally laid to rest. So thoughts and prayers certainly go out to his family. The person I feel for the most, of course, is his, I believe, is it 7-year-old daughter. It's very, very sad. But now we're learning more information about George and Chauvin, the officer who put his knee on George Floyd's neck. Now, we've reported on this the last few weeks or so, that at one point they worked in the same club together. Of course, I'm talking about George Floyd and Officer Chauvin, who's never going to be called Officer Chauvin anytime again for the rest of his life. Maybe he'll be somebody's girlfriend in jail, but he's certainly not going to be called a police officer anymore, and rightfully so. We shouldn't feel sorry for him. It appears as though those two have more than just a history of working together. They happen to have a bad relationship with one another, which I think we all kind of suspected on this show. So, according to a former coworker that used to work with both of them in this nightclub, his name is David Pinney, if I'm not mistaken. Listen to what David Pinney had to say about Chauvin and how he treated minorities. Have a listen to this.
They bumped heads.
How?
It has a lot to do with Derek being extremely aggressive within the club with some of the patrons, which was an issue.
This is not the first time I've heard this, by the way. There was also one of the managers of the club that said the same thing. I can't recall her name. But
yeah, she specifically said minorities.
So now why is this important? Well, for a number of different reasons. First of all, just from the case alone, now you can have the prosecution that can have these people take the stand and show that Chauvin had a history of mistreating minorities. That is extremely important. That's number one. Number two, you want to get him on murder 2 charges. Listen to this. It appears as though Chauvin and Floyd did not have the best relationship in that club, and it had a little bit to do with money. Have a listen to what David Pinney said about that.
Exactly, but it's not George's responsibility of what he receives as pay for moonlighting. That's the manager's job from the club.
But Derek took it out on George.
Exactly, is what I didn't understand. At the time, yes, because he took it out against me, and I actually made him leave I had to make him leave the club.
So is there any doubt in your mind that Monday, Derek didn't know who George was?
I'd say he knew him.
You think he knew who George was?
Yes.
Any doubt in your mind that he knew who George was?
No. No doubt in my mind. He knew exactly who George was.
All right, so they're talking about payroll issues where somehow George Floyd was able to handle some of the money, and then he gave it to the manager, and then the manager was the one that was able to figure out.
The manager decides how much the bouncers on the inside of the club get and how much the bouncers on the outside of the club get. And somehow the manager then gave Floyd the money to give to Chauvin.
And
Chauvin felt like he was shortchanged and blamed Floyd for it, even though it was the manager's decision.
And again, why is that a big deal? Well, it shows that they had some sort of history. I believe this man. I don't believe this man, David Pinney, is lying. I don't believe the manager of the club when she said that, yes, they absolutely knew each other. And by the way, she also said the same thing that this guy Pinney said, that Chauvin had a history of being overly aggressive with minorities. It shows a pattern of behavior. It's kind of like, and I hate to use this analogy, but I will. Say, God forbid, a husband kills his wife. Unfortunately, sadly, it happens in this country. But let's just say there's a history of him battering her, or treating her poorly. I mean, I look at the O.J. case, although it surely didn't convict O.J. But if you look at the O.J. Simpson case, I'll compare it to that. O.J. physically beat his wife. We saw the pictures. It shows a pattern. And any logical person would say, well, if you're beating your wife and you have a history of violence with your wife and she's murdered, probably want to question you first. Chauvin has a history of mistreating minorities, just based on the club he worked at, not let alone all the complaints he's had as a police officer over 2 decades. This is so important from a legal perspective. And the reason why I say that, it's so easy to figure this out. The prosecution has to prove for murder 2, they have to prove that there was some premeditation involved. If you show and prove that Chauvin had a history of mistreating minorities, and you actually show that they had this volatile relationship in the workplace, it's going to be easy to prove. You couldn't find a more easy case to prove. That's why they upgraded it to murder, too.
Yeah, and Floyd, he still allegedly passed that fake $20 bill. All that happened. But then you have to wonder, when they actually pulled him over and he saw who he was dealing with, what went through his mind.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we had Judge Andrew Napolitano on the show, and he made from Fox News, and he made such a great point. It didn't occur to me. It could be premeditation just in that 8 minutes. When Chauvin's knee is over George Floyd's neck, and when George Floyd is pleading for his life with his hands behind his back, what is going through Chauvin's mind there? You have one of the officers that says, shouldn't we roll him over? He says no, twice. That is premeditation. He is literally thinking in his head, nope, I'm going to make this guy suffer. I don't believe he was trying to kill George Floyd, but I do believe he was trying to physically harm George Floyd. I don't think there's any question about that. You could hear George Floyd pleading for his life. He's clearly in pain. That's premeditation. And ladies and gentlemen, that is why Chauvin, in my personal opinion, should get the electric chair. I know they don't have it anymore. Lethal injection, whatever it is. Give this guy the death penalty as far as I'm concerned. That is absolute premeditation. Now, if Chauvin had pushed him to the ground and let's just say hypothetically George hit his head and he died, that would be different. You could get him maybe for manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter, whatever the case may be. But the fact that his knee was on him for that long a period of time, even after he wasn't breathing, did we forget about that? George stopped breathing. His body was motionless, and Chauvin sat there like the criminal murderer that he is, the racist. And yes, I do believe this had something also to do with race. And left his knee on this guy's poor neck after he was dead. What more do you want? What more evidence do you want than that? That this man should go to jail for the rest of his life. It's such a disgrace that there are people out there that are calling it the George Floyd challenge for these racist, white supremacist pieces of garbage. And by the way, don't say it's not about politics. I haven't seen any Joe Biden signs, but I've seen nothing but Donald Trump signs with some of these people that are doing this George Floyd challenge, where you have these white supremacists that are mocking putting a knee over somebody's neck, staging it with a smile on their face, with their Confederate flags and their Donald Trump signs. These are some of the dumbest people in society. Am I saying that every Donald Trump supporter is a racist? No. Am I saying that every Donald Trump supporter does not sympathize with the George family? No. But what I am saying is, find me one of these people with a Joe Biden sign. Find me one of these people that's mocking the Floyd death with a Joe Biden sign in the background. You won't find it, folks. You won't find it. But right-wing radio and right-wing television won't talk about that. They won't show that. Kathy Griffin with a Donald Trump head, it was wrong. It was wrong what he did. You saw that on every conservative station across the country. That's all they talked about. Let's ostracize Kathy Griffin. Let's fire her. She'll never do stand-up again because of what she did. And you know what? I don't feel bad for Kathy Griffin. She was wrong. But you won't see any of these images on Fox News. You won't see any of these images on Rush Limbaugh's show, or you won't hear about it. The fact that there are white supremacists and that there are evil, evil people, racists, across the country with their Donald Trump signs in the background and their Confederate flags mocking the death of George Floyd. You won't hear that on right-wing radio. Geez, I wonder why. I wonder why that is. Because people are not intellectually honest. They lie. And they'll do anything to back their president, Donald Trump. That's why. Why won't Donald Trump come forward? Why didn't he meet with the George Floyd family? Why won't he get up on a podium and say, if you're mocking the death of George Floyd, it's disgusting and I disavow? Why won't he do that? Well, I'll give you an answer, folks. The same reason why the KKK is still not labeled a hate group. But all he wants to do is talk about Antifa. That's why. Because it appeases his base, and make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, the only thing that Donald Trump cares about is himself and re-election in November. You think he cares about the Floyd family? Joe Biden went down there. He spoke to the family with his wife. He helped them through the grieving process. His wife offered them grieving counseling. Donald Trump decided to pick up the phone because somebody in his administration said it was the right thing to do. He had a 5-minute conversation with them. Members of the George Floyd family said they struggled to even get a word in edgewise because he talked over them. This is your president. This is our president. If you don't like Joe Biden because you don't like his policies, no problem. I totally respect that. If you like some of Donald Trump's policies, no problem. I totally respect that. Don't you dare compare the two when it comes to empathy. Donald Trump has zero empathy. Zero. If the man had a good bone in his body, he would have been down there speaking with the Floyd family with Melania. And by the way, where's Melania been through all this thing? Taking care of Barron? Where's she been? We haven't even seen her face. You have Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Joe Biden, who, by the way, has appeared on this show, who has class and dignity. And you have Melania Trump that's hanging out in a bunker for inspection. I'm sick of it. I'm so sick and tired of it. How about Eric Trump? Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., as I like to call them, Uday and Kusei. What have they been doing throughout this whole thing? They've been tweeting about Antifa. Do they actually care about minorities and the issues? No, they're tweeting about how Ivanka Trump was supposed to be speaking on campus somewhere, and they canceled it. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about the liberals canceling a Trump speech. They're worried about Antifa. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about the liberals, the Democrats, the deep state. How many times in the last 2 weeks have you, if you're a conservative or a right-wing nut, how many times have you tweeted deep state compared to George Floyd? I'd really like to know the answer to that question. And while all this stuff is going on in the world, we have racists on television and local racists right here in our hometown. I'll get to the local in a second. But let's start with, the guy who said the idea of white supremacy is a hoax himself, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson yesterday on his show appears to believe that a mob of black people is going to be coming after you. That's what he said. I'm not making this stuff up. This is Tucker Carlson on Fox News last night. Have a listen to this.
This may be a lot of things, this moment we're living through, but it is definitely not about black lives. And remember that when they come for you, and at this rate, they will.
Tell me that doesn't sound like a blatant racist. He might as well have a Confederate flag in the background of his show every night. Remember what Tucker Carlson said in August about white supremacy, weeks after 22 people died in El Paso, Texas, at the hands of a white supremacist in a Walmart. This is what Tucker Carlson said on his show. Have a listen to this.
But the whole thing is a lie. If you were to assemble a list, a hierarchy of concerns, of problems this country faces, where would white supremacy be on the list? Right up there with Russia, probably. It's actually not a real problem in America. The combined membership of every white supremacist organization in this country, would they be able to fit inside a college football stadium? I mean, seriously.
Yes, seriously. So the idea of white supremacy is a hoax, but now when all this is going on, black people are coming after you. You're going to tell me Tucker Carlson isn't a racist? Give me a break.
And also remember, as I was doing some research last night about that comment that he made back in last August, you remember that's when he went on a, quote, fishing trip with his son when Fox News gave him a 2-week suspension.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then he came out, and of course no one knew exactly what it was for, but Tucker Carlson said, "Oh, well, I was fishing with my son. That's why I took a vacation."
What a load of crap. That piece of garbage. Tucker. And then it hits home right here in Las Vegas, ladies and gentlemen. Disgraced Mayor Pro Tem Michelle Fiore. And why do I call her disgraced? Well, she said very controversial things in the past. According to people that had firsthand knowledge of the situation, they're saying that Michelle Fiore comments at a Clark County
Republican
convention said that white lives matter. And people in the room said that you could hear a pin drop when she said that. Okay? She actually went on and she made some pro-law enforcement remarks that turned to opposition to affirmative action. Boy, that's a really, really good timing to talk about, being against affirmative action. It's also led to her raise a hypothetical scenario and use an expletive in which she lost her job to a black person. Now, how could anybody support that? What can you find a worse time to make a statement like that? White lives matter. This woman should be ashamed of herself, as far as I'm concerned. Shameful.
She said, she told local news that she will be giving some sort of statement or speech about these comments and giving her side of the story for why she allegedly said white lives matter.
Frankly, I don't care what her reasoning is. I don't care about her half-hearted apology. I'm sick of these people that make stupid, ignorant, racist remarks. and then a few days later they have somebody write a speech for them. Michelle, we don't need your apology. Get the hell out of office. You're a disgrace to this city.